Welcome to Peter Pan. I hope that you're as excited to read this book as I am to talk about it with you. Peter Pan is one of my very favorite stories, and I'm really excited for you to start discovering this story in a new way. The history behind Peter Pan, I think, is pretty interesting because it actually started out as a play. The play was written in the early 1900s, I think it was 1904, by the author James Barrie. Well, the playwright James Barrie. He was a playwright first. James Barrie lived in England. He was a Scotsman who spent a lot of time in London and came across a family at one point known as the Llewellyn Davies family. And if I was actually British, I would pronounce the Llewellyn part very differently. It's actually a Welsh name, but I'm American, so there you go. They were a family of predominantly boys. There was the mother and her husband, and she had several sons who just became very good friends with James, and he decided to write the play Peter Pan, kind of loosely based around the adventures and fun times they had together. If you've seen the movie Finding Neverland, you've seen kind of little glimpses of what that was like, although the history is a little bit different. For example, if you've seen Finding Neverland, the story is based around James's relationship with the mother Sylvia, whose husband has passed away. But in real life, her husband was alive and well, and they actually had one more son, I believe, before he passed away. Michael, I don't think, was actually alive or not that old. I can't remember how it worked out, but there was a little bit of an age discrepancy there. So they were both actually alive when Peter Pan, the play, was premiered. After both Sylvia's husband and Sylvia herself had passed away, James became part legal guardian of the boys, which is true to the movie Finding Neverland, and remained so for the rest of their lives, helping them get through college and trying to serve as a mentor for them. So the story itself is kind of loosely based on real events, though if you know Peter Pan at all, you know, of course, that it's not terribly based in reality, seeing as they spend a lot of their time flying and fighting Indians and pirates. But we'll talk about the symbolism of that a little bit later on. Originally, the novel was published not under the title Peter Pan, it was published under the title Peter and Wendy, but eventually the Wendy part was cut because Peter Pan was the character that everybody liked and related to most, which I actually find a little bit curious because as we start talking about the book, you'll discover that really the best way to read the novel is from Wendy's perspective and not from Peter's. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go into our next video. The play itself, when it was originally out, was expected to be a huge flop. In fact, there's a really funny anecdote of the actress who played Peter Pan. Originally, they'd have actresses play Peter, and traditionally still often will, because it's easier for them to look like little boys, but have the acting capacity of older adult actors who are more experienced. So the woman who was playing Peter, there's a scene that I'm sure you're familiar with where Tinkerbell drinks the poison for Peter and the audience is supposed to clap to bring her back to life. She was utterly terrified that the audience wouldn't clap because she thought, oh gosh, they're going to think this is ridiculous. Because traditionally at this time in London, theater was attended primarily by very wealthy old people and they didn't bring their children with them. So when the audience did actually clap for this very childish fairy tale, she actually burst into tears because she was so relieved. The play was an immediate success across Europe and across the United States as well. In fact, Mark Twain has talked about how much he loved Peter Pan, so it was a very popular story. I hope that you enjoy reading the book. In the next video, we'll talk a little bit more about the symbolism of the novel to prepare you for how I would like you to read it this time. Because it is such a familiar story, you're not really reading the book, most of you, to find out what happens, but mostly for what it can teach now. So as we dive into the next video, be prepared to take some notes.